I'm Michelle.
I'm Chris.
And I'm SP from the Starling Tribune,
A podcast member of the Gonna Geek Network.
Just like the show you're listening to now.
The opinions expressed are those of each individual host.
Check out all the other podcasts at GonnaGeek.com.
And get ready because geekiness begins in
3,
2,
1.
Hey everyone, we had a great weekend here in San Diego at San Diego WhoCon. Whitney and I participated in a number of different panels, and we recorded a few of them for podcast purposes and for our YouTube channel. This is the first one to drop. It's our panel, which was called the IntelleXual Podcast Live from SD WhoCon, with a number of special guests from the con. So check it out, and if you're in San Diego next year, be sure to check out San Diego WhoCon. You can look up more information on the convention at sdwhocon.com.
Talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. The IntelleXual Podcast starts now.
Okay. Shaking of heads.
Oh, I can't do that anymore.
Gnashing of teeth.
Squish the two edges together.
It's more difficult when you're from Vulcan.
Yes,
that's what I understand.
I played a couple Vulcans.
If it's any consolation,
are you good for Star Trek Online?
My friend Dino's done a bunch of voices for Star Trek Online.
It's a good thing. When your ears are bigger, there's more for it.
Everybody's talking,
Dino,
so we're going to go ahead and get going.
I know Dino.
Welcome to the IntelleXual Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Dawson.
I don't know him well, but I know him.
I'm your other host, Whitney Wegman.
And our guests who are chattering away in the middle here.
Yes.
Starting next to Whitney is Marc. I don't know how you pronounce your last name. Biagi.
Yeah, you can say Biagi or Biagi. Biagi. I'm a paisan. So, hey.
And Travis.
Hi.
And I don't want. I'm notorious on our show. If you listen to our show ever at all, I'm notorious.
Do we have
I'm notorious for butchering people's names. So Richey.
Like
I looked at it. I looked at it and I was like, it could be Richey, it could be whatever. So I always mess that up.
The kids always called
It's the
me
French.
Richey because they were assholes and they weren't imaginative.
That's me.
Oh, hey,
not allowed to.
family. Travis, if you aren't aware, is known as Inspector Spacetime to a lot of Doctor Who fans.
Mm-hmm.
We're honored to have you on the panel.
Thank you.
And Doc Phineas.
Hello, everybody.
Who is the most outstandingly dressed individual at the con today.
Thank you ever so. It's a tough job. Someone must do it.
I want to be like him when I grow up.
And next to me is Ben.
Ben Paddon. Hello. Yes. Hi. I'm authentically British.
He is.
What's your last name, Ben? Paddon.
I loved how you checked your name tag.
I did have
He
to
might
check
have
my own
forgotten
last
his
name.
last name there.
It's my fault. I made you nervous about messing up your own name. Right?
See, last time I think I was Ben Paddon.
I'm definitely still Ben Paddon.
That's remarkable.
I used to get picked on in school. People used to call me Ben Paddington.
Is that going to be your next book? Still Ben Paddon?
Really funny. That's what I thought of
That's actually
immediately.
awfully cute, I have to say.
It does.
Now that
It
you're
does
older,
remind
it's
me.
not an insult. It's not, especially because
it's
when
kinda
I was a
cuddly.
kid, people over here didn't really know who Paddington Bear was, and now there's been 2 movies.
Yeah.
Peter Capaldi was in both of them.
Sure. Also, there is Are You Being Served?
There is Are You Being Served?
Oh, that's true.
So,
Mr. Humphries, are you free?
we are here
with my Paddington.
with all this Britishness on the panel. We are here at San Diego WhoCon, the only Doctor Who convention in San Diego, which is amazing and fantastic. And I want to shout out to the convention organizers for bringing intellectual entertainment on, and for bringing all of you to sit down and chat with us. And if you've never listened to our show, we just talk with entertainers, writers, actors, directors, musicians.
Not just entertainers. We've talked to politicians and scientists.
I try to forget
Intellectual
the
people,
politicians.
David.
And you included politicians in that?
Politicians.
But so we're here at WhoCon, so I figure, you all are here because you are in some way, shape, or form part of fandom now.
And discerning individuals because we like Doctor Who.
What is it exactly that makes you discerning to be a Doctor Who fan?
That's a good question. I think for me, it's a combination of the storytelling. It's a combination of the heart that goes into the show itself. The longevity of it speaks to the quality of some of the storytelling that's going on, type of world that they've created.
Yeah.
It's a world I'd like to live in.
I think that on a kind of a basic level, there's a large portion of the population that fears things they don't understand or don't know. It's a big problem we're having right now culturally. And I think sci-fi in general and Doctor Who in particular is hard to understand sometimes because it's not dealing with your everyday normal life. Mm-hmm. And so just basically to even be open to being entertained by something that is new is that's what makes us as fans discerning.
Absolutely.
I love Doctor Who because I think that there really is an intent in the show that he is making the universe better.
Exactly.
You know, and I love the fact that he loves Earth,
mm-hmm.
and he loves Earthlings. He has some kind of affinity in his heart for Earthlings, and I just think, you know, looking at our country, looking at Earth right now, if we ever needed Doctor Who, it's this moment, you know.
Yeah.
So he wants very much to be good.
He wants to be good, and he wants to make Earth better in spite of the Dalek.
Right.
You know, and so I just think it's a moment when we really need Doctor Who. We need him.
Yeah. If there isn't an orange Dalek
next
year.
I mean, they all bronze now, technically. So,
true.
I mean, I grew up with Doctor Who. I grew up watching the classic series. I've seen everything, God knows how many times. And I think one of the things that I'm always reminded of two quotes. One is from Craig Ferguson, where he described the show as the triumph of romance over brute force and cynicism, which I think is a perfect way to encapsulate Doctor Who. But Terry Pratchett once said, and I don't know if he was talking about Doctor Who, but he said that ingenuity in a time of no money will always win out in times of money and no ingenuity. And I think that the Doctor Who production team have had a wildly fluctuating budget since 1963, and even when they haven't quite been able to afford to do something big, that hasn't stopped them from pursuing big ideas. Right. Even if you end up on, you know, a planet covered in, you know, bee people, if you can only afford to put them in, you know, really badly sewn together bee costumes and have them standing there going buzz, you know, at least they're going for it. You know, they're always swinging for the fences, regardless of whether or not they have a bat. And I always, you know, I think that's to be admired, I think.
You know, since you mentioned authors, I think Neil Gaiman also had a description. I can't remember the exact quote, but paraphrasing here, it had to deal with Doctor Who is not necessarily science fiction, but it's about a man who travels in a magic box, has sort of a magic wand, and he goes around and he helps people and fixes problems. So it's in a way, it kind of encapsulates
Space Wizard.
Yeah, exactly.
What does Neil
ways.
Gaiman know about Doctor Who, though?
Well, he did write two of my favorite episodes.
You guys not hear someone said that to him on Facebook recently.
Did they really?
I saw that, yeah.
Oh my gosh!
That happened with Paul Cornell as well. So,
yeah.
Paul Cornell did a tweet about how much he enjoyed Jodie Whittaker's first episode, and then someone tweeted at him like, "Well, I can tell you've never watched classic Doctor Who.
Oh my god!
I can tell you don't really watch the show. You're not a real fan." And someone said, "Well, Paul Cornell is one of the few writers who's literally written for every single Doctor in comics and novels and TV." And then later that same person tweeted, "I got blocked by the writer of Doctor Who, sad face."
I think one thing that's really evident, like in all of your responses, the writing in Doctor Who, no matter, like you said, no matter what the budget, an audience will forgive a lot if there's good writing and there's depth to that. And I think all through the ages, they've kept that. The humanity of this alien.
Well, you know, like I didn't become a Doctor Who fan until New Who. And my girlfriend at the time convinced me to sit down and watch it. And I'm still watching Doctor Who, but I'm not with her anymore. That tells you what happened to me.
Longevity.
But in enjoying New Who, I was able to go back and watch Classic Who with a different eye to the storytelling, because now I understood there was this kind of long, lengthy lore to it all. And I was able to kind of go, okay, Classic Who is like theatrical drama. Like it's like watching a stage play that's been filmed. And once I kind of wrapped my head around that, then I was able to just enjoy it for the writing.
Yeah.
And there were amazing writers, like Douglas Adams wrote.
He was a script editor for a full season.
It was amazing, you know, and that's the thing that I think is really interesting about Doctor Who is that, like you said, put the special effects aside, and a lot of the new effects are really great, but sometimes they're not. But what is very true with Doctor Who is that throughput of writers really trying to tell good stories about trying to be a good person,
right?
Which I think is really admirable, and I think what endears it to so many people.
Yeah.
You know, right now I'm on two television shows on ITV in England, and during the time of Doctor Who in the 1960s, I was on BBC. I was on a lot of shows, and I was around the sets, and they were a little bit flimsy, and I sort of remember everybody scurrying about like, oh my God, how are we going to do this scene? We basically have like cardboard and no budget.
Yeah. Right.
And what they did was amazing, and I think that's half of the attraction, in that it is a little funky and maybe the set's a little wavy sometimes. You can look at it and you can tell, wow, these people were doing the best they had. Okay, we've got a plunger, we've got a Dalek, I think it might have been a vacuum cleaner, and they're doing the best they can. And, you know, you look back at shows like that on BBC and you can't help but feel nostalgic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes the fans kind of use their imagination to say, well, these really are bee people, or these are what they're doing. And I think that's really a great attraction to the show.
I remember one of the stories I watched over and over again as a kid, because I was born in 86, the show was cancelled in 89. So whenever a story would come on VHS, my dad would buy it, because he grew up with Doctor Who. And the story I remember watching over and over and over again is Tom Baker's very first story, Robot, which is kind of very loosely kind of like a sci-fi take on King Kong.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a really, really bad visual effect where the robot's getting bigger. And they've kind of got this bad kind of green screen effect, and you can see the waves on the lines, and where the screen is reflecting on the robot's leg, that bit's gone transparent, and it looks really ropey. It doesn't look good at all. But as a kid, that didn't matter to me, because the story was so captivating, and Tom Baker had such charisma, and the writing was so good. It didn't bother me that the visual effects didn't live up to, you know, what the writer had put on the page. Like, all that mattered was that I was enjoying what I was seeing. And I think now in particular, I think people like to harp on about when a TV show or a movie, when the visual effects don't quite, you know, they're not quite convincing enough. I think people really like saying, oh, I can see the strings, which I don't say so much now because everything's CG.
Although you get it's really cartoony. I hate CGI. People don't realize like 90% of what they're looking at on the screen is CGI, even if they don't know it.
I mean, but they still do a lot with practical effects too, which I really appreciate. So.
Yeah, but I think that people like to, feel smart by pointing out, oh, this visual effect doesn't look good. That doesn't matter if the writing is good. If you're enjoying the story, it doesn't matter if they've accidentally green screened out a person's leg or.
They didn't need that leg anyway.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Congratulations, your character name is changed to Eileen.
Which way?
It gives it a vintage look. It's a vintage look, and I think that's what we love, is looking back at old television, you know, that's far out.
Now, clearly everyone on this panel is a bit of fanboys. My question is this. At what point and how in your history did you go from being a fan to being a part of the creation? Because each of you has a hand in some sort of fan fiction, you know, voiceover work, etc. Things like that. So share with us your areas and how you got there.
Shall I?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I've always written, like, even when I was a kid, before I knew what the term fan fiction was, I was always writing, you know, Doctor Who stories or Star Trek stories, or I also grew up watching Red Dwarf, so I wrote way too much Red Dwarf stuff. But I didn't start really engaging with the Doctor Who fandom at large until I moved to America, and I started going to Gallifrey 1, which, for those who don't know, is like, it's one of America's biggest Doctor Who conventions. They have it every February in Los Angeles. And it's supposed to be like a 3 or 4 day event, but people arrive early and you're there for the week. Just people getting drunk and talking about Doctor Who, which what's not to love about that?
There's a lot of agreeing in the audience.
And I started going, you know, I'd go to panels, and then when they were looking for people to participate in panels, I started to throw my hat in the ring for that. And then I started pitching panels, which the convention liked, and started doing that. And then a couple of years ago, I pitched something to Gallifrey 1, which was, I called it the Game of Rassilon, where there is a tabletop Doctor Who role-playing game called Adventures in Time and Space. And it's the rules are super duper simple. You just need 2 6-sided die to play it. But I thought, wouldn't it be funny if we got some comedians and we played that for an audience at Gallifrey 1 for like 90 minutes? And we've done that the last 2 years. We're doing it again next year, and that's just been a resounding success.
I want to play.
Well,
I want to be on it.
Not have me on this?
well, maybe next. Well, we're doing it in February as well. We're doing one here actually at San Diego HooCon tomorrow, which we already have people.
Maybe
for
we
that,
are.
Unfortunately,
I don't know.
I
No, I
wish
haven't
you.
checked
If
my
I'd
schedule.
known, I've got people driving down.
Mark
from LA
doesn't
for
know
this
anything
thing.
he's on. He's like, I'm on that tomorrow. Great.
But we have a lot of fun doing it. I have the way I do that panel is I have everyone pick one doctor and one companion from the entire run of the show, and then I roll a dice at the beginning to see who's going to be the doctor. So I started doing that. People love that. People, we filled the room the first year we did it. We filled the room the second year we did it. And I'm actually getting some people together to start doing that as a kind of a bi-weekly podcast. We're going to create our own version of the Doctor on our own
How
companions.
fun.
And that's born out of, my love of Doctor Who and wanting to tell stories in that universe. My dream has always been, I would love to write for Doctor Who someday. Like, there are 3 shows I want to write for, and 2 of them are still on the air, so it could happen. Doctor Who and Red Dwarf, I'd love it. But this is as close as I think I'm going to get right now to getting to write for Doctor Who. And that's really what it is, like wanting to kind of play in that universe. It's something I've always wanted.
Ben, I have to share with you. So we have this weird little psychic connection to the universe thing on this show. We've had a bunch of people share what would be your wildest dream hope thing. And shortly thereafter, it ends up being a thing. So shout it out to the universe.
Okay.
Manifestation.
Say it loud, say it proud.
We've had weird
Live
manifestations
big.
on this show
I'm
for
going
the
to write
last
for Doctor
couple
Who.
of years.
It's going to happen before. I'm going to give myself a wide berth. I'm going to say it's going to happen by 2025.
All right,
Fantastic.
All right, 2025
I love it.
or sooner.
Well, this is my 63rd year in show business. Can you imagine?
Wow.
That's
Wow.
It's not bad considering he's 48.
Time
Wibbly wobbly,
travel.
timey wimey, right?
You know, I'm a little kid and in the 50s and 60s, and these fantastic shows are starting on television. And in those days, I was on the Pinky Lee Show, I was on Howdy Doody, I was on Sky King. My mother took me off to Hollywood, and I'm like, Mom, my foot hurts. And I really don't want to work today. I'm on the Mouseketeers. You want to eat? Get out there and tap, dude. So that's kind of what I was doing, as a little kid. I was on a lot of television shows, and I remember becoming a fan, in 63, 64, and I happened to end up being in England and doing a lot of work as a little kid in things like Oliver and a lot of shows on BBC. You'll see me out there as a little kid. And so it was really fun, to have opportunities to be on episodes, to be, I have memories of this as a child, going on a lot of times as an extra, but definitely being there back on the sets. And they were a little bit flimsy. There was a lot of imagination going on. I felt like there wasn't the greatest budget, going on in the world, but they were still just so much fun to see those episodes and to look back on those episodes. And I really cherish that. And then, here I am, jumpstart back to where I am at now at 70 years old. I was at Comic-Con this year. I came out of a TARDIS. It was on stage. It was shaking. There was steam coming out. And I came out of the TARDIS with Hello Kitty, And then the Dalek's on stage, and I'm going, well, hello, Dalek. Well, hello, Dalek. And so this is what they do with me at 70. I'm just saying I'm still out there,
You look
tap
like
dancing.
a doctor right now.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
sure.
you. Yeah, thank you. And I feel like I am the Doctor on some level. I'm like the 69th Doctor, like the steampunk
The sexiest
version.
doctor you could be.
There you go.
But I just have such a love for that show. From the moment I saw it, I just sat there captivated as a child of the 60s. And I was there in 63, 64, 65, watching every episode.
You got to see stuff that's missing from the BBC archives.
Yeah, he
I
did.
did. I really did. I've searched back for shows that I can remember, and I can't find them.
Oh,
And I'm like,
wow.
oh God, I can remember that episode and what happened, and working for BBC, you're back there on the sets I saw a lot of Doctor Who sets, and I'm walking around, and my God, I just wonder what happened. Where are they? They were so cool.
You should talk them out to Ben, have him rewrite them, and you'll
There
be
we go,
cast as
yeah.
the
You know,
Doctor.
we really
Done.
should.
I wrote a sketch
Easy
for Gallifrey
peasy.
last year
We
about
should-
what was the villains that they bring people at the end of their lives to
Oh,
Oh yeah,
last season, right? Or
Yeah,
the season.
the end of.
Yeah. They bring people
Capaldi.
right before they die. They bring them and then grab all.
Yeah,
the
that
memories.
university on New Earth. Yeah, the one.
Yeah,
from,
exactly. So
West
I
Point.
wrote a sketch about they pulled someone out just to get the last episode of Doctor Who.
That's so cool.
That's marvelous.
The glass robots.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one.
Yeah, I can't remember what they were. But
Anybody remember the
The
name of
little
those?
reveal of Bill.
I think it was. I think
are
it was the University of New Earth.
no,
right?
we
Or
are the. God, I wrote the sketch. I
There
can't
was
remember what they're
yeah.
called.
Testimony.
Testimony.
There
the
we go.
testimony.
Testimony,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. And so,
I was thinking about that earlier because when we were doing the In Defense of panel, someone brought up the Tesselector taking River before the end of the time stream. And I was thinking, okay, so one of the things that Stephen Moffat has given us is two separate organizations that show up at the end of a person's life. So if a person is bad, first they get captured by Testimony to have all of their knowledge downloaded to a big computer, then they get put back, and then they get taken by the Tesselector and punished for being bad.
it's an
Unless they have a
organizational nightmare
lottery.
is what it is.
What if one of them gets there before the other one does? It's
How do
like,
they deal with that?
Yeah.
You know?
I don't know.
They arrive at the
Are you
same
going to-
time.
are you
Lots
going to
of
take him? Are you
paperwork.
going to
Lots of
take him? We were
paperwork.
going to take him. No, I want to take him.
and they're all English, so they're all being too polite. No, you should go. No, you.
Please.
I insist. Oh no, we're going to be torturing him. It's going to take hours. No, you absolutely go first. And he's just standing there going, "This is no."
And then
Can I
he's
just
dead,
leave?
because you really only have that split second
around. Where did he
to
go?
figure it out. So.
So I got a question for you guys. Whitney has just started watching Doctor Who. I finally got her to do it by getting us into the convention. And she's gone through 3 doctors now, right?
Yeah.
Because you're up
Yep.
to Matt Smith. Looking at classic Who, with each of the 4 of you, who would you, or what episode, or which Doctor would you suggest to Whitney to catch up on with classic Who?
God.
Well,
That's good.
I mean, give us a hint. Like of the modern Doctors
Who
you've
do you
seen
like?
so far, who do you like?
David Tennant.
Okay.
So much. So much.
That's a fandom girl, right there.
No, so I liked Tennant long before I started watching Doctor Who, just because I'd seen him in Hamlet and
Yeah,
I saw him.
right.
I even liked him on Jessica Jones. Like I thought he did a really good job. He's just a good quality actor.
I don't
You
want
might
to be
like his father-in-law, Peter Davidson.
Peter Davison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I don't want to be crass, but
That's his
Tennant's
real life.
father-in-law is one of the classic Doctors.
Yeah, in fact, there's for Red Nose Day they did a
they had the 5th
meetup.
Doctor meeting the 10th Doctor. So Peter Davison might be a good Doctor for you to
And
go for.
even stranger than that, do you remember the episode The Doctor's Daughter? Mm-hmm. Well, that's David Tennant's wife in real life.
Yeah.
They got
They
married
met
after
filming
that.
that episode.
And she
And she is the
Peter
5th
Davison's daughter.
Who's Peter
Right.
Davison's
actual
daughter.
daughter.
The
That's
actual
mildly
Doctor.
creepy.
so now the 5th Doctor is the 10th Doctor's father-in-law.
That's
Alright.
right. That's real
Yeah.
Who lore right
And
there.
I do have to say, I still love Peter.
Oh, I do too.
Those
I
movies
enjoyed
are
those
not
movies.
awful. I mean, they are bad, but they're fun.
They're just so fun. And
In
he's so
actuality,
amazing.
he
that-
was my first Doctor in actuality.
right?
I
Oh,
saw
God,
I
that's
saw
Peter
the
Cushing.
Planet of the Daleks films.
Yeah.
and
The t-shirt you
and
were
then
wearing.
what was it? Dalek Invasion of Earth.
Invasion Earth 2150.
Invasion Earth, yeah, exactly.
Sponsored by Weetabix. Post-apocalyptic London, and there's ads everywhere for breakfast cereal. It's ridiculous. Because they financed the movie.
Yeah, and it was, but that was my first Doctor, and so when PBS started airing episodes when I was living in Northern California, our station had a few episodes of Pertwee. We didn't get very long of Pertwee, but we came in toward the end of his run with Silurians mostly, I believe, or Sea Devils or something. And so I was watching this, not knowing what it was at first, and then it was like, wait a minute, that box, this is the same thing. I know this universe. And then I got into Tom Baker and all the things since then. But I think there's a lot to love for me. It's hard for me to choose a favorite Doctor because there's something I love about every single one. And I didn't grow up watching, Hartnell or Troughton. I didn't see any of their episodes until they became available more recently. So, but there's something I really like. In fact, if I were to take my if I were to be the Doctor, one of my dreams, of course, as an actor, but I think I would be I'd be my own synthesis in addition to having aspects of McGann's Doctor and the second Doctor. So there's things that I would bring in, and I do as a real Aikidoist in real life, I'd bring in Venusian Aikido and give it some verisimilitude. So, but that's something that I think for me is there's something to love about all of them. Although a lot of people say they hate one doctor for one reason or another, there's something I find kind of endearing about every single one of them.
Every incarnation of the Doctor brings something different to the table, and even I know that one Doctor that is constantly maligned is Colin Baker, the Sixth Doctor, and I think that's because the writing didn't serve him during his time on the show. He's great, and if you ever decide to explore the audio plays that Big Finish have done, his audios are among, I think, some of the best.
Oh, and we actually
did a readers theater last night of Spectre of Lanyon Moore.
Oh, there you go.
And
that's right.
I was Evelyn.
Yeah, she was. I'm not a big fan of Colin Baker myself, except once I started listening to the audio drama, I was like, you remove the goofy outfit he was stuck in and just listen to him as the Doctor. He's great.
Yeah, he had the most unfortunate outfit, I think, of all the Doctors. That was one of my things that we didn't get to.
It's so hard
today.
to take him seriously in that outfit.
Yeah, he's all Joseph in his Technicolor Dream.
It was very patchwork and just very silly.
I love that coat.
And especially coming off of Peter Davison, who was like, he's cricket preppy, basically, and he was looked like he looked like he came from a prep school, basically, and so he was very dapper in his costume that way.
But they both had the question marks on the collar.
But they both did have the that was the only well, he also did have celery in his pocket though.
So I think the end result of your question is I just have to watch all.
Well, I would say the classic Doctor Who, it's not, obviously there are individual serials and stories, but it's not as continuity heavy as I think the modern series is.
Yes.
The story I always recommend, anyone who loves modern Doctor Who, if you want to try something from the classic era, is Remembrance of the Daleks, which is a seventh Doctor serial. It's my favorite Dalek serial. It's one of, I think, the best classic Doctor Who serials of all time, but it's got the same kind of pacing and tempo of modern Doctor Who.
But that's the one with Ace, right?
Which is really the
stuff
big difference between the old stuff and the new stuff.
Yeah. That was the whole, if you're supposed to be the supreme race of the galaxy, why don't you come up the stairs after me? And
and then they did.
They did.
But Remembrance of the Daleks. BritBox has most of surviving classic Doctor Who.
That's
they
true.
don't have some of the Dalek stuff for various licensing reasons. You might have to just shell out the $80,000 or whatever it is to get it on DVD. But I always recommend people buy the DVDs from the UK because you can get them for like $8 a pop, and a multi-region DVD player is not expensive. It's a lot cheaper than because the DVDs in the US, some of them are out of print, so it costs anywhere between $30 and sometimes $200 to get a serial now.
My first Doctor was Tom Baker back when I was a little kid, because I had older brothers that were always exposing me to what they were watching, and they were 10 and 12 years older than I was. So I was watching, Doctor Who, but also Star Wars and Buck Rogers and the original Battlestar Galactica, and not realizing how bad any of it was. But Tom Baker I got into, and I liked. He was kind of a clown. Yeah, that kind of he high energy, very good for kids. And my problem was I had the opposite experience you did, because when he died and regenerated, I was too young to understand what was going on, and so suddenly it was just this different person, and I didn't know what was going on, and so I quit. And so I didn't watch Doctor Who again until...
I hate this.
Yeah, I just didn't get it. And I was always surrounded by friends who were into it. So I had a friend who had actually built a TARDIS console in his bare bedroom and stuff like that. But until I auditioned for Inspector Spacetime, I didn't go back and watch any of it. And then I did. And reading the script, I knew that they were referencing the new... I knew enough about the new show to know that they were referencing... I think it was Matt Smith, actually. So I went and watched Matt Smith's first episode just to kind of get a refresher. Went and auditioned, got cast. And then I was like, okay, well, I have to watch now. So I started with Christopher Eccleston's run, watched the whole thing through, realized I missed something for Torchwood. So I had to go back and watch Torchwood. And then I realized I'd watched it all too fast and didn't remember any of it. So I went back and watched it again. But that was my whole experience with.
And
now you're kind of a Time Lord yourself.
And skipped over your fandom. So share with us your fandom experience.
So that was my fandom experience. But I've also always been a writer. Star Trek was my early passion. In high school I wrote episodes of Voyager, I think it was on the air. And because Star Trek was also the only television show that accepted unsolicited manuscripts. And you could actually send it in, fill out a waiver, and a lot of the big sci-fi writers we know now, not not Michael Moore.
Ronald D. Moore.
Ronald Moore and Renee Echevarria, and those people actually got into it by writing for Next Generation, by submitting scripts. Anyway, so I've always done that, but I've also, being an actor is my primary passion. Like I want to be I'll probably never, because I'm not British, be a part of the Doctor Who universe. But I would love to be part of the Star Trek universe at some point.
Could happen.
I am, and I might be able to.
I would love to. And now they're going to do like 4 different shows that are all actually
I just did a scene with the actress who played Tilly in Discovery.
Oh, wow.
I have
Awesome.
I have a lot of different stuff. It's for me. You're talking about dreams coming true, and I have that in the Star Trek universe for me. Even though it's an audio, I'm not on camera. I would love to have that experience too. But my voice is opposite Zach Quinto, and all these different people whose work I really enjoy, and being able to play these characters. But also as a fan, they kind of like working with me because they go, okay, Mark, you're going to play this, and they go, oh, okay, this is the race that did blah blah blah, and they go, okay, great, go,
and you get it,
and it's like I get it, and they don't have to tell me what does a Vulcan sound like, what does a Klingon sound like.
That's a weird thing. You do encounter watching actual shows where you'll watch a show and you'll be like, that guy doesn't know what genre he's in.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like I was telling you earlier, Travis, there was an episode a story they were doing. Remember the Doomsday Machine with Captain Decker? With came in the giant, basically cornucopia in space that was shooting laser rays.
The murder cigar, as I like to call it.
Yeah, it was like a bugle. And anyway, they were doing there's another one of those, and I'm a Klingon, and I go into that, and I have to sing this death song, and they did the audition, and even though I'm kind of on the short list for them, they said, yeah, we have a song in Klingon that you have to sing, and I said, which one? Koi Kalis Puklod? And they go like, you know the song. And and I came in, and I nailed the audition, of course, and then it's like we come in, and I actually sang that a cappella, and the composer was on the line when we were doing the directed session in studio, and so we did a warm up real quick. They go, why don't you warm up, and the composer's going to listen and stuff like that. I go, great. And so we talked a little bit about stuff and what tempo we kind of wanted to take it at, and so I warmed up. And then he goes, okay, great, start the reel right now, stay there and do it. And I did, and he goes, oh my God, that's amazing. And it was so nice because it was like when nailed it in one, which as an actor you love to hear. And we try to do all the time, and sometimes technical things keep that from being a reality.
I never do it in one. 3-take Richey, that's what they call it.
No, I don't mind multiple takes either, because sometimes the third is the best, because you get through the whatever's blocking you in the first read. But it's a joy to be able to be in that universe as a performer when you're also a fan.
Yeah.
So it's something that I can't wait to do more of and other things, and I have in a bunch of different genres, but not Doctor Who yet. And that it's like you were saying, not being British, we're not very likely to become the Doctor ever. But we could potentially.
Never say, I know Big Finish increasingly are casting American talent. They have, they record remotely.
Okay, well I'll make sure to call
over
them.
here.
They asked for a copy of our reader studio.
Awesome.
Yeah. My fingers are crossed.
Because that would be a dream come true for me is being there. And I'd be happy being a companion. I'd be happy being a new Torchwood. That's my persona.
Dude, just all I want. Because when David Tennant was,
because he's Scottish.
There's an animated serial that they did for the BBC's website called Scream of the Shulker, and when they were recording that in one studio, David Tennant was recording another thing for Radio 4 in the other studio, and as soon as he heard they were recording a Doctor Who thing in the other studio, because this was before he was the Doctor, this was before the show even came back, and he was like, I need to be in this, put me in this. He went and nagged the director, and basically there was one character that ended up getting split into 2 so Tennant could have a line.
Oh, that's awesome. I hadn't heard that.
So that Tennant could say, yes, I've been in Doctor Who, give me a line, I'll take a line.
Well, it's really interesting. Prior to the advent of television, actors looked at stage plays. Like, I want to be in Shakespeare. I want to be in The Tempest or in Hamlet. Or
I still love that.
But that was the thing that there was a fandom for performers. That was a history. There was just a need to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And I think what we've seen in the last 30, 40 years as television and film has matured is we have a new paradigm of what people who want to entertain want to be a part of.
Yeah.
Yes, I think there's a uniqueness as an actor that you have in science fiction that you do not get in other genres, and that is the fact that you can take your character to places that you cannot normally do in other types of dramatic formats. Sometimes you might switch gender. You might have to have your personality switch with somebody else. You could be the evil you could be the really ancient you could be really young you could be there's so many different possibilities to the character that you're embodying, and having to bring that in, that it's very challenging and fun as an actor to be in that environment, because you get to take a character that and then mutate it into ways that you're still discovering. And as an actor, the process of discovery is very rewarding in what we do.
Yeah. And if you look at sci-fi television, it's the actors who are regulars that get the exciting things, whereas on other types of shows like procedurals, the regulars are often there just to support the guest stars. But if you look at shows like Doctor Who or Star Trek, it's the regulars that get really great arcs through their career or through their runs.
Yeah. When Russell T Davies started the reboot of Doctor Who in 2005, if you've ever he co-wrote a book called The Writer's Tale, where he talks about specifically the production of the show's last season and then David Tennant's gap year specials. It's email correspondence between him and a journalist named Benjamin Cook, and he was talking about how when he started doing Doctor Who, he had writers coming up to him and saying, "Why aren't you doing drama anymore? Why are you doing genre television?" And the answer to that is sci-fi is a genre, but you can do sci-fi drama, you can do sci-fi comedy, you can do sci-fi horror, and Doctor Who is frequently all of these things, occasionally in the same episode.
Yeah. Exactly.
Genre television is not devoid of drama. I would wager that most of the people in this room are affected by, the 10th Doctor and Rose saying goodbye at the end of Doomsday.
Oh, God, I cried so much.
Yeah,
You're going to make me cry right now.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm singing a song about that tonight, so...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, and you can also tackle you focus on relationships very much in shows that we love, but also you can tackle bigger questions, societal level questions, and often they do. So that's something that you can do on sci-fi that's a little easier than on shows that are more down to earth.
Absolutely. I mean, these days I watch people walking around with those apple buds. I'm waiting for them to be converted into Cybermen. The little thing, it's like, we warned you.
Well, I'd imagine on the technical side, being a part of a show like that, you get such a wide range of things you can do. Like if you're costuming, right? One episode you're in the Wild West, the next episode it's Victorian. Exactly. Same with the props. Man, think of the resume you could just create on things that you can do just based on being on a sci-fi show.
It's true.
I mean, people who do costume, like Howard Burton, who did the costuming for, I think, the first 2 seasons of Capaldi and I think the last season of Matt Smith. He had previous sci-fi experience doing Red Dwarf. And just the sheer variety of costume stuff that you have to do for a sci-fi show, the sheer variety of props and set design and
full cultures that you have to come up with. What does their fashion look like on that planet? What's the standard for that?
That's a whole thing.
Well, I mean, everybody talks about world building.
Yes.
For film and television, but when you're doing sci-fi as your genre and you're moving from planet to planet every episode you have to do world building. You have to completely create new cultures. Figure out how they dress, why they dress that way, why they have tentacles or don't have tentacles. Not just even the clothes, but the biology of it and why they are a certain way. And it's incredibly interesting as an entertainer to get to build that stuff, figure it out.
And that goes through and through to your acting as well,
Yeah. We did all that for, just the Inspector Spacetime web series that we did. We spent an inordinate amount of time figuring out, because we had to create a brand new look for the Inspector because, for legal reasons. And I worked with a costume designer and we talked about why his costume is what it is. And, because the Inspector is different.
Please fill this in because I want to know.
Yes.
Well, he's more like a universe police. And so he's the first of his kind, and he is, we don't know why, and we don't, but a lot of this stuff that we created, and he has no hearts, And so, but that's just something we said on a whim, but then we were like, oh, okay, so then we have to justify that and create this whole backstory about why, and then, but then it opens up really interesting possibilities because, as I was saying, the people that he travels with, the humans that he travels with, literally are his heart. And so, and they balance him. And the inspector, when you watch the series, I kind of play him like a little bit of a jerk. And he's kind of cold. He's kind of like calculated. And so the people are necessary for him to balance that kind of like inhumanity. And so but we also work with not only the tools that he uses and the booth that he flies in, and all of that stuff has a reason. Like Piper has this ring. You don't even see it in the web series, but we have this ring on Piper, and it actually is it's an entire universe in a ring.
Oh wow!
And it's like a life form that she wears. It travels with her. It's cool.
Production is so much different now, and over my 60 years of being an actor, and when I was first engaging in a lot of these things, it was like being on a holodeck, literally.
Oh, bad.
I mean, we created everything. This was before the time of computers.
And for your imagination, too, having to use your imagination totally.
One of the first movies that I was in, and it was Blade Runner.
Oh, gosh.
And
what
just
a
being
film.
on that set with Bud Yorkin, interjecting all these things, and here's Ridley Scott. And we're in downtown Los Angeles.
And Sid Mead's designs are amazing.
We're working out things as we're working, and like Bud Yorkin turned to me and he said, well, Doc, what do you think, like, in the future, what language do you think people would be speaking in downtown Los Angeles? And I said, well, there's a lot of Spanish people, there's a lot of Korean people, so I imagine it's a combination of Korean and Spanish, right? And I was just in downtown Los Angeles doing a production, and people were speaking Korean mixed
and Spanish.
With Spanish.
Really? Wow.
And I thought, wow, these things really come true. It's
It
really
does.
bizarre. And here on the side of a building is this huge screen and this like, it's like very much like that. So now when I'm in production, I'm basically wired for sound. I'm on a green screen.
Right.
I'm talking to actors that I will never, ever see,
Right.
doing scenes by myself. And it's such a different world than those early worlds where we actually created all of the stuff that we were.
All the practical effects. I mean,
my
I think
God,
that's.
it's
I may not
amazing.
have enjoyed Prometheus as much as I hoped to, when Ridley Scott did that. But one of the things I did respect is that film was largely practical sets. Those sets were all built. There were a lot of practical effects that went on, and it's a dying art in a lot of ways. But it's amazing to me. I mean, I've worked on green screen, and as a voice actor, I have to use my imagination all the time. And usually, I don't know if you guys know this, but when we record things in the studio, it's usually me and the director and a producer out there and the engineer, no other actors. So the people I'm talking to, I don't even know. Some of them I've never met, and sometimes I don't even hear what they're saying in their lines. I'm just getting a cue or see what their line is going to be, and I have to react, and I get direction from the director. But I don't hear that interaction until I hear the final product. So you have to make choices. Acting is making choices a lot, but you choose. You try to be in that moment and be as real as you can, responding. But you have to engage a lot of your imagination. I think
that kind of voice acting is really, really interesting, because one of the things you'll hear actors talk about all the time is working opposite another actor who's a giving actor. Gives you something to work off of.
True.
But as a voice actor, oftentimes only person giving you something's you.
It's exactly as they say, acting is reacting.
Yeah.
Where you really are listening to who you're working with and responding and making that hopefully a real response, a real true response. It's organic and means it's true to your character in that moment and in the moment, as we say. But it is more difficult in studio doing those types of things because we are having to engage our imagination. Yeah. And on green screen, you're doing a lot of that type of work as well.
Absolutely.
Because it's, like you said, he doesn't have another person there. He may never meet the person he's doing the scene with. We have no
set, nothing, just a green screen. And in the early days, you really felt like you were on a planet.
Yeah.
I felt like, wow, I'm on this planet. I'm in this great outfit. I'm interacting with people.
And now they go, talk to the ball on the stick.
Well,
it's interesting watching behind the scenes.
Yes and no, though. Second episode of Jodie Whittaker's season, this beautiful planet that they're on.
Yes.
They went to Africa.
South
to shoot
Africa,
it,
yeah.
right?
Yes, they did.
So they're doing location shooting in New Who. That's
They do,
unbelievable.
and they shoot some of their budget that way, and then other times they're going to do something a little bit more simpler with virtual sets and stuff. So they balance it out, and I think they do that rather effectively based on the story and the story that they're trying to tell.
They did it a couple of times in the classic series as well.
Yes,
for
they
City
did.
of Death, they went to Paris, and for Planet of Fire, they went to I think Lanzarote.
And New Who, they come to the States.
They've
you
come
know,
to the US,
they do all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, they've shot all over the place for.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun to see places I've been on Who. I was like, I've been to Monument Valley. That's amazing.
This is where the doctor got shot.
All right, so gentlemen,
Yes.
because this is a special episode,
Okay.
and we don't usually get to do this on the Intellectual, I would love to kick it out to the audience. Speaking of interactions, you guys have any questions for our panel?
Oh, they're on the spot. Look,
I know.
We weren't expecting this. Too
Freaked
much
them
pressure.
out.
Give them warning like half an hour.
They're gonna
ago,
start
like,
speaking in
Do you have
Sporean.
any episode questions?
They're just
There's
so
one.
nervous.
There's one.
Wait, we got a mic coming for you. You're on the.
Okay. We were talking about our favorite doctors, old doctors, and I remember seeing Doctor Who, the first Doctor, and he was kind of snotty, British snotty.
He's
And
very kind of
that
grumpy
appealed
and
to me.
aloof.
That appealed to me. And then when he died, he kind of, but I mean, I liked he was kind of snotty to everybody. I like that. I don't want Jodie to be snotty.
She doesn't seem to
He was
be.
a little superior.
No, she's, yeah.
Because he knew he was better.
How did you feel about Capaldi?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same thing.
Loved him.
You got a type.
Yeah. We do.
We just learned a lot about you in 30 seconds.
Yeah, be snotty and I fall in love, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I got to say.
You like the stuck-up gents.
I think it's interesting because Capaldi is, appears as two other characters in the Hoovers. So
He was
in Pompeii,
Frobisher in Torchwood, and he was in Fires of Pompeii.
Oh,
Right.
He's played 3 separate characters.
That was him, wasn't it?
yeah.
I thought that one of the things I didn't like about Capaldi was that he was so angry at first without
They made such a thing of his eyebrows.
Without any real reason.
Ben did earlier.
There's like no reason for being so mad.
Yeah,
I think part of it was really I don't think he was expecting to go on after 11, and
I don't think
then
so.
He is, and I think when you have
character,
more
yeah.
life that you don't expect to receive, you
made
question
me
things.
mad.
That kind of the whole "Am I a good man?" thing, I think, is from a story perspective, is born out of.
You think
I
it's
thought I was
like
at the
guilt?
end of the road.
Do I deserve
Yeah.
this?
He
Like,
thought he was
deserve
at the end
extra?
of his regenerations,
Like,
and this was an extra reward.
I thought I was
Yeah.
well, not even a reward. I thought I was done. I thought I'd
Yeah.
done all the good I was going to do, and now I've got more life than what I wasn't
True.
expecting. Do I
Well-
deserve this?
Well,
Have
and then he didn't want to regenerate.
Yeah.
Wait. Remind me then in the Town Called Christmas, who he didn't ask for those regenerations?
No, he didn't.
He
was,
didn't.
No.
They just
done.
gave it to them.
Well, Clara was the one who
Yeah, the plot
begged
device.
the
She
track.
begged.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And also, we have to remember that a lot of these things were filmed before we really had method acting.
True.
So there was a certain dramatization that you had in a character that today maybe we try to be a little bit more realistic.
Yeah, it was
and
a lot
back then, I
bigger.
think a little bit more
Yeah.
stylistic, a little bit bigger from stage.
Yeah,
you know,
it
take
was.
a stage actor and you put him in front of a camera. And
It was. They were
it's-
like you guys were saying, a lot like a stage productions. They were like stage plays.
he
as
was
if you were watching
Shakespearean
it
trained,
large.
and I remember when he used to appear like at Covent Garden,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he was in Much Ado About Nothing, and so he'd go from Shakespeare to doing Doctor Who.
Oh my
and,
gosh.
And I find as an actor, being Shakespearean trained, that
Sure.
maybe some of my characters I thought, well, I was really, maybe that was overacting. I'm not really sure. But it was the time we were in, like in the 60s and 70s. That's what we did.
Right.
Whereas today on the screen, I keep having directors tell me,
Be broad,
take it down, just
pull it back.
and throw that line away.
Yeah.
I never ever had a director in the 60s say, throw your line away.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And now
Line
they'll
was
just
there,
say,
was there for a reason.
Yeah, we're
say-
not doing that bit.
even like, I'm picking up ADRs right now. I'm starring in Stephen King's new movie, Mute. And Stephen King would say to me, Doc, I want you to just say that line like you really don't care. And then it's a very odd
But
thing.
it is,
How
isn't
acting
it?
is different today
It
than it
is.
was in the 60s.
But when you see it on camera, finally, sometimes it makes sense.
Well, when you're in IMAX and 3D surround sound, less is more.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, it's.
I'm gonna have to cut us off.
Sorry.
Unfortunately, I love where this topic's going, actually, but we are way out of time, which is a weird thing to say with Doctor Who. But thank you guys so much for sitting and talking to us for the last almost an hour. Thank you all for joining us here for the panel.
Thank you for all those questions.
Thank you all for coming to San Diego WhoCon. Please listen to more of the IntelleXual Podcast. You can find us at ixe.us on the web, or you can find us on iTunes or iHeartRadio or Google Play. So we will be back tonight for a recap of Jodie's debut. So come join us to watch the show, and then we're going to sit down
we have time for
and
any
have a chat
quick
about that
shameless
too.
plugs at the end for other things going on.
So we got people coming in for the next panel.
Oh, okay, we gotta go.
Plug it real quick. Super fast, 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Okay, I'm doing a voice acting workshop this afternoon at 4 o'clock. I can't remember the room, but look in the program.
There you go.
Cool. 7:30, we're going to screen the entire Inspector web series, and you can also find all my stuff at Travis Richey on YouTube.
I am literally about to go do a panel about making a fan film with a full-size Dalek prop, because I did that and didn't mention it earlier because I'm an idiot.
And tomorrow, don't forget the high tea, which I'm doing a theater production called Coronation.
Excellent. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Hello there, citizens. I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the floaty that will not flush no matter how many times you try in the toilet bowl of crime. I am Darkwing Duck, telling you please, talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. Whatever the heck that means. After all, you are watching IntelleXual Podcast with your ears.
If you've enjoyed this episode and you have a geeky-related podcast of your own that you think would be a good fit for the network, fill out our application form found at www.gonnageek.com/join. The Starling Tribune reporters, Stargate Pioneer, Michelle and Chris, review the Legends of Tomorrow Season 3 finale episode, The Good, the Bad, and the Cuddly, and discuss some recent news surrounding the DC Comics-based CW superhero shows. The reporters enjoy the best episode of the season, keying in on Captain Rip Hunter's ultimate sacrifice, all the help the Legends received from their friends, Mick Rory's worst intimate experience ever, and the massive amounts of cuddles Bebo needs. All that on the Starling Tribune, a CW Network Arrow television show fan podcast. Available at gonnageek.com.